TWM podcast.
Hello, welcome to a very special edition of TWM Talks. I'm your host Shirley, and you get to hear me for two TWM Talks in a row because I took over with the very awesome Charlotte Flair interview that came out on Friday. Now I'm back with a special look into NWA's upcoming pay-per-view Hard Times, which you can order on FITE.tv via anywhere where you can have FITE. It's on Friday the 24th of January, starting from 6:05pm Eastern, 11:05pm GMT. And this is going to be a very special look because not only is it going to be a preview of NWA Hard Times, we're going to have a very special, pretty much exclusive interview with one of the newest members of the NWA team in the form of Stu Bennett. And it will be really interesting to not only speak to him about his career, because it's been 10 years since he came in to WWE NXT, but we're going to be talking about NWA, why he chose to come to NWA, looking back on his career, and looking forward to seeing what he's looking to do next. So I'm now going to pass you along to the interview. Hopefully you enjoy it, and remember to order NWA Hard Times on FITE.tv. How have you been? It's been so long.
Yeah, I've been good. Yeah, I'm in LA these days, so living in the nice weather, sun shining every day.
Lucky you. Like, I'm in Rochester and it is raining. There's a storm here. Things are blowing down everywhere. It's a bit mental.
Oh dear. I don't even think I know where that is. Where is that? I haven't gone too long. I've been gone 13 years at this point.
Yeah. Has it been that long since you've been gone?
Yeah, 2007 is when I moved out to the US.
Oh,
currently working on my citizenship.
Ah.
So they won't be able to kick me out then.
Yeah, you're going to be stuck there forever.
Yeah, life is definitely in the US these days, that's for sure.
Yeah, but no, it's in Kent, so Rochester's in Kent, so it's like to
Rochester, is that what you say? Rochester? Yeah, I've never heard of that. I know there's a Rochester in New York.
Yeah, but you stole it from England.
That's the original then.
Yeah, I'm in the original.
I don't know Kent very well. I've been to Sittingbourne before, and that's probably about it. I wrestled in Sittingbourne, or I went to a wrestling camp in Sittingbourne in 2004 with NWA, coincidentally.
Yeah.
Which is what we're here to talk about today.
We are talking about that today because we are going to be promoting NWA's Hard Times pay-per-view that is coming up. As of the recording, it will be this Friday, the 24th of January. And what I thought we would do in this interview, as we talk, I'm going to throw in a hard time question to you and see what you say back. So it'll be like, give me a hard time, and then I'll insert something there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm throwing that out at you.
I don't really follow that, but let's give it a shot.
So it'd be like,
give you a hard time. I don't want to give you a hard time.
So it'd be like, give me a hard time. Tell me about a hard time in NWA when you trained.
Hard time. Okay, I don't want to give Shirley a hard time. I thought we were friends.
We are friends, so it's all good. It's all good. No, but
all right then. So have you been? I take it you've been following NWA, Shirley.
I have been following NWA, and I did my homework before I got on the phone to you. So okay. I know that you've got Hard Times coming up, and you joined in like early December time. So what made you want to go to NWA?
You know, I've kind of left the wrestling industry for the most part for the last 3 years. I was burned out with it, with being with WWE for almost 10 years, and it's completely absorbing all my life. So I needed a break from that. I wanted to go away and do some other things. I wasn't enjoying being in the wrestling environment and the direction the product had taken, amongst other things.
Yeah.
So I needed a break, and I went away, did some filming, did some TV shows, and got my personal life in order. Which was a bit of a mess when I was with WWE, so definitely a big change in my life, but I was aware of what was going on in the wrestling industry. Obviously, I've still got a lot of friends who work in the business in WWE and AEW and various other places, and coincidentally, a couple of my friends were working with NWA, and David Lagana, who is kind of the head creative guy in NWA, amongst other things, he wears a lot of hats. He started contacting me just over a year ago about the product. I think he was looking originally to bring me in as a wrestler,
right?
Which I wasn't completely against, but similarly, I haven't wrestled now in about 3.5 years at this point, so it wasn't something that I was desperate to get back into.
Okay.
And I'm still not really in that position, but something I have always enjoyed is commentary. I've done quite a bit of it before. I did some in FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, about 10 years ago with Dusty Rhodes and Byron Saxton while I was in developmental. I've done some with Defiant Wrestling, or What Culture Pro Wrestling as they used to be known. I've done some with WOS, or World of Sport in the UK. So that's something I've always enjoyed, and I let David Lagana know that, and he kind of kept in touch with me. Over the past 12 months, talking about the progress that NWA was making, and I became a fan of the show simply sitting at home and not thinking about going to work there. I was watching the show. It's my kind of wrestling. It's what I would call a narrative or storyline based wrestling that's very much focused on characters and personas and promos. But outside of that, I let him know, look, if anything comes up in the commentary world, definitely give me a shout. I'd be down to do that. And coincidentally, a few months ago, or a couple of months ago now, there was a opening in the commentary area, and he gave me a call and said, look, if you'd be interested, we'd like to bring you on board. And I was completely down to give it a shot. So there we are. And I came along, and I enjoyed working with them. It was great meeting Billy Corgan. I was a fan of his music when I was younger, and it's great to see how much of a fan of professional wrestling he is and how knowledgeable he is. And David Lagana is a great guy to work with, so very happy to be there and very happy to be pursuing this different arc in my professional wrestling career.
So you were talking about how the commentary side has really brought that thrill out in you. So what do you learn in the commentary side of wrestling that you don't get to learn when you're in the ring?
That's an interesting question. I think for me, it really boils down to what drew me into professional wrestling in the first place. And I think a lot of wrestling in this day and age has gone away from wrestling as it was when I was younger, which was very much storyline based and character based and narrative based pro wrestling. And nowadays, a lot of wrestling is simply about moves and stunts. It's become what I think of as stunt wrestling. So I think if you're in a position to commentate on a show, you get the opportunity to add a narrative to the wrestling. And NWA is very much narrative based as opposed to stunt based wrestling. And I like the opportunity to talk and give characters and performers a bit of flavor and paint a picture for fans watching of the story of a match, of how it's developing. So that's always been my passion in wrestling. That's always what I've been focused at. It's always been what I've been best at as a wrestler. I was best at promo work and character work and things like that. I wasn't the guy who was going to go out and do 2 backflips and blow people away with my stunt-based wrestling. That was never my thing. So anytime I was involved in a storyline or personas and characters and stuff like that, I felt I excelled. So that's what I enjoy doing, and I get the chance to do that in commentary, and especially with NWA, which is very much a narrative-based style of professional wrestling. Yeah,
and you can tell from the way that they edit it, it's got that really great retro feel when you watch it, and then you look in the ring and it's very much, you see modern wrestlers doing retro style, and I'll be honest, it's one of my favourite programs to watch in wrestling now because it's different from what we're seeing. It's weird how
I think so. It is weird that it becomes unique in the fact that it's doing this old school thing that used to be completely ubiquitous, which is how everyone did it, but the style of wrestling has evolved and everybody's gone to a kind of more insular direction in wrestling, where it's more directed at the hardcore fan base, where people like my dad, if he's flicking through the channels and he sees some wrestling that's on today, he really struggles to connect with it because it looks like gymnastics and things like that, whereas I think NWA's success so far has been that people can just pick it up out of nowhere. It's kind of like an episode of Friends. You can watch Friends, you're halfway through the episode, you can just turn it on and you're immediately with it. You might not have watched it for 6 months, but you can just connect with it straight away, which a lot of professional wrestling now, you can't do that because you turn it on, it's so insular, and the style of wrestling is so far away from what's easy to connect with, and the characters and storylines are away from what's easy to connect with, whereas I think NWA is very much, you can just pick it up and almost from the word go, you're with the show and you're into it, and it's very easy to connect with. So in that sense, it's almost back to basics in a way.
Yeah.
But again, like I say, it's always been what I've connected with in pro wrestling, and in my opinion, one of the detriments of modern pro wrestling is that it's gone away from this style. So I'm thrilled that NWA is bringing that back, and I'm obviously very happy to be a part of that.
So who do you think, from what you've seen in the wrestling scene, who do you think would suit coming into NWA and you'd be like, yes, they would be a perfect fit?
I think first of all in NWA, one of the key things that they like is guys who can talk. There are certain guys out there in the wrestling world today who are great talkers, who I think NWA will always be interested in that kind of thing. It seems to be one of the main things about NWA is that the average guy on the roster is a very good talker. So anyone with that kind of background is great. I think generally the guys in NWA are bigger guys too, for the most part. Yeah. There's a lot of 6.5 foot guys, 250 pound plus guys there. So that's the kind of average wrestler in NWA, which I think is quite different to a lot of wrestling companies these days. In terms of who would be good that's available right now, I really couldn't tell you. I don't watch that much wrestling outside of NWA. I'm aware of what's going on in WWE and AEW and a few other companies, but to be honest, I'm not even sure who's available right now who we could pick up. I'd say someone like Sheamus would be amazing. Obviously, I'm very good friends with him. He's a great talker. He's a big guy who can go in there and brutalize people. There's a guy in the UK who I'm a really big fan of, and I've been a fan for a long time.
Rampage
from WOS. So there's guys out there for sure. Martin Kirby is another one from the UK. I'll be a really big fan of getting him over here. So there's a lot of guys around, but exactly who's available at what time and not under contract at certain companies, I couldn't quite tell you. So
there'll be Rampage Brown and Martin Kirby. They're both fantastic. I love both those guys. They're just so good at what they do.
Awesome. I work with them both in WOS, and I'm not even sure if they're looking to travel at the moment. I know Martin Kirby's doing a lot of work in Japan these days, and Ollie, or Rampage as his ring name is, he tends to stick to the UK. I don't know if he's too keen on travelling. He never seems to be around too many places, but definitely two of the UK's best. So getting him over here would be great. Justin Sizen's another one. He was the WOS champion at one point, and he'd be another one who'd be a great fit. So guys like that, it'd be awesome to get them over here.
Yeah, and I think the names that you said, they are not only people who are well known to us British scenes, but they helped build the British scene when there was nothing there. And that was along with you as well, which leads into my first question of the Tell Me a Hard Times. Tell me a hard time you had when you were initially wrestling in the British wrestling scene.
Hard times in the UK when I was starting out was simply the fact there wasn't a scene. You were lucky to get on any kind of show, and one of the luckiest things about my career was that I got picked up very early into my wrestling career. I think from my first wrestling lesson to being picked up by WWE was about 2.5 years, which was really fast. Yeah. But the hardest thing, certainly at first, was just getting bookings on shows and getting to work with guys who were better, who were better than me at the time, because a lot of the times I was being booked on shows and it would be against a guy like Nick Aldis, and Nick Aldis has turned into a great wrestler. Obviously he's the NWA heavyweight champion now, but back at that time we were both very green, very new. We didn't know what we were doing, but because we both were so big and we looked like we worked out and we looked like wrestlers, we'd be the main event of shows and we'd be against each other. But I'm working against the guy who has maybe had 3 matches. I've had 2 matches at this point, so I'm not really improving that much by working with him. So occasionally I'd get to work with a really good wrestler like a Doug Williams, which would be massively beneficial. I could feel the progress I would make as a wrestler when I got to work with a guy like that, but it would be so rare. It would be every 6 months that I got to work with a guy as good as Doug. So one of the benefits the younger guys in the UK have these days is that there are so many good wrestlers around. There's this great thriving scene, or there has been a great thriving scene over the last few years, which I hope continues. But But yeah, I think the toughest part was just getting to work with guys who were better than me.
Yeah, and now, as you said, that's completely changed. Like you said, it's been a few years. I kind of got into the scene in 2015, and I kind of fell out of going to WWE shows and then went into the British scene and saw how thriving it is with the people like Jimmy Havoc, Marty Scurll, Will Ospreay, Mark Haskins, like those. There was such a variety back in 2015. It just blew my mind. And
yeah, that's it, bro. And that's kind of the time when I was getting fed up with WWE and looking to move out, and then I started noticing how good the scene was in the UK and the various companies that were doing good things out there. And then I already knew Rampage Brown, I knew of Martin Kirby, and if you had Jimmy Havoc, I knew of already, and Marty Scurll was another one who I kind of started out with. So I knew a few of the bigger names on the scene at the time, but I was blown away by how big the indie scene had come out there. I'd kind of been removed from it for about 8 years at that point, and it had changed massively in the time that I was away in completely a great way. And that's why there's so many great wrestlers and great wrestling companies out there in the UK these days, and I hope people continue supporting that, because if it goes away, it's going to be a real detriment to the wrestlers coming through.
Yeah, I think what's really good now is that there's a big fan base out here now, like that wasn't there before, and it's grown so much. And people say Brit Wrest is dead now because of NXT UK, but actually people are coming out with new things and it's freshening things up, which is really nice to see. And as a fan, it's like, yeah, I want to keep tuned.
Yeah, exactly. There's a different generation of human beings around these days with things like social media that can make things grow a lot quicker than they could when I was younger. Not to sound like too much of an old man, but this was when I was wrestling in the UK, nobody had a smartphone and nobody had Twitter or Instagram. You couldn't really promote yourself. You had to rely on a wrestling promoter to put you on his website. I think we had MySpace, actually.
MySpace, yeah, that was
pretty big at the time. So I had a little crappy MySpace account with my terrible technological skills. So that was about it, though. But these days, I think things can evolve a lot quicker, and when something like NXT comes along and crushes a part of the scene, there's other areas of the scene that can then grow and find the nooks and crannies that they can exist in. And I think fans can also find these places a lot easier these days. It doesn't take much to get something trending on Twitter or get a picture or a video of a wrestler to go viral or something like that. So it's a lot easier to get noticed without having this big juggernaut of WWE or ITV or whatever it is pushing. You can do it off your own back these days, which is fantastic and allows the smaller companies to get a foothold a lot quicker than they ever could in the past.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about, I was going to tell me a hard time you had in WWE, but you kind of have done that too.
Just look at anything I did in 2015 or 2016. That would have been my hard time.
Oh, God. And I intentionally didn't write about anything. I made no notes on that bit because I chose to forget that those 2 years happened.
You and me both. I wish I could do that for my mind.
But that's why I changed the question to. So you are obviously now, it's been 10 years since you were in NXT, The Nexus, Core, King Barrett, Bad News Barrett, everything we're forgetting about now. But what would you tell yourself if you could meet that guy who cut the promo in London talking about Winds of Change? What would you tell him?
I don't know what I would tell him. I wish I could have the understanding of wrestling politics that I have now and how to advance yourself behind the scenes that I didn't have back then. I was very naive, young, and didn't understand how important the political side of wrestling was when I was younger. So when I was getting opportunities in 2010 when I was doing Nexus and NXT and things like that, I was not savvy enough to make the political moves I should have. Given my knowledge now, my education since. So that was it. It's very difficult to boil it down to one line or one piece of advice, but it's very easy looking back 10 years later to say, oh wow, I should have done this, I should have made this move, I should have spoken to this person at this time. But that's the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of mental growth over the years and educating yourself and understanding where I should have done things differently, but I didn't have the knowledge at that point. So it was very difficult, like I say, to boil it down and give one piece of advice. But absolutely, politically, I think if I'd have been a bit more savvy, I could have altered the course of my career at certain points.
Fair enough, but you'll be pleased to know there's no more Hard Times questions about your career, because what we're going to do is we're going to run through the Hard Times card as we know it, because tomorrow will be the go home show before Hard Times. So this, what I've got written down, is based on the episode that happened last Tuesday.
Why not spread? I said, why not spread the gospel of the TWM squad with some of our lovely merch over at Teespring? We have t-shirts for all shapes and sizes, hoodies, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, and loads more. Also, just for listening to this podcast, you can get 10% off your order. I said using the code podcast. That's podcast. Once again, podcast in the checkout for 10% off at teespring.com/stores/TWM-wrestling-merch. That's right. Praise. Testify.
We've got the television title tournament where we've got Ricky Starks, Zicky Dice, one of the Tim Storm, either Trevor Murdoch or Tom Latimer, and 2 open slots. And on Friday they're going to be fighting for the NWA television title. Who do you think stands the best chance of winning?
You know, there's some. I mean, Tim Storm has to be the favourite based on who was currently qualified.
Yeah.
Just because of his experience, and he was the NWA heavyweight champion at one point, so he has this tremendous background. Mm-hmm. The two surprise positions in there to be decided that are going to come from people outside of the NWA. That's going to be very exciting too, because I have no idea who they are going to be. It's going to be as much a surprise to me as a commentator as it is to everyone watching. So they could be anyone from the world of wrestling who's available right now. So I assume are going to be pretty big names. But the guy who's really caught my eye recently is a guy who I was completely unaware of up until about a month ago, and that's Zicky Dice.
Yeah.
Just one of the most ridiculous professional wrestlers I've ever seen, especially in this era. His mind is stuck in 1984. Yep. I thought when I met him that I wasn't going to like this guy at all, but then he took about 2 minutes to win me over, and I'm a huge fan of him. So I think he is completely made for TV. He is made for professional wrestling. He's the kind of character who could only exist in the crazy world of professional wrestling. So I think he would be a dark horse, being that he's kind of an unknown quantity and such a big, confident character. I'd like to see him do very well in this tournament.
See, I would like to see Ricky Stark do really well, because I feel like you talked earlier about like the gymnastic type wrestling and how that's what it's more turned into, and that's what Ricky Stark was. And now he's come to NWA, he's showing a completely different side of him, and I feel like he's going to do really well in this tournament. I've got a prediction on who I think he will face, because he's got one of the open slots. I would really love to see him against Mark Haskins.
Oh, that would be fascinating. I'm a Haskins fan, actually. I met him when he was with Defiant for a short period of time. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I think those two would be fireworks for sure. I mean, Ricky's a great athlete, as you mentioned, but I'm loving this persona that he's bringing out. He's very much a man of the world. He's got a lot of influence. I think his family background comes from all over the world, and a lot of his culture and his showmanship, he takes different pieces from different parts of the world, and I think he's definitely going to go places in the world of NWA and the world of professional wrestling in general.
So I'm saying Ricky Stark will win the NWA TV title. You're saying Tim Storm or Zicky Dice?
You know what? I think I got to go with Tim Storm just because of his experience and the level he's competed at before. But again, there's 2 spots in this 8-man tournament. There's 2 spots that are wide open. We don't know who it is. It could be Mark Haskins, as you've just suggested. I genuinely have no idea who these 2 are going to be, and I'm quite excited, even though I'm a commentator there. I'm excited from my fan part of my brain to see who turns up. And it was a surprise for me a few weeks ago when Marty Scurll showed up at the show. So it's awesome to get these surprises in this ability I still have to be a fan. And Scott Steiner shows up randomly and things like that. So it's so exciting for me to be around that environment and back excited about professional wrestling again.
And that leads me very nicely on to the next match we're going to talk about, because it was announced on the last NWA Power that Nick Aldis is going to be facing Flip Gordon at Hard Times, and that's a huge match because that's a crossover between NWA and Ring of Honor. As we've been talking, Nick is very much that old school type wrestler. Flip is literally his name, Flip Gordon. He does all this acrobatics. What do you think is going to happen during that clash?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. And I'll be honest with you, Nick Aldis, I know better than anyone on the planet. I've known him since 2004. I wrestled him a bunch and trained with him, so I know him really well. Flip Gordon is someone I'm pretty new to. I remember Cody Rhodes or Cody from AEW is someone who I remember he was doing some stuff with Flip a couple of years ago, I think, and I remember seeing on Cody's social media they were putting videos up and stuff. So, but really, I need to research him a lot more. I know he's one of these high-flying athletic guys, so it's going to be a contrasted styles, but I think the bigger story is the fact that Nick went over to Ring of Honor, invaded their show, attacked Flip Gordon, and obviously Nick and Marty Scurll at some point are going to be on a collision course. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I'm sure Flip feels he needs to stand up for Ring of Honor at this point after they were invaded by Nick and Strictly Business. So there's some bad blood there already. I think it's going to be a great show, and I'm sure they're going to put on a fantastic main event. And the narrative behind this is just as exciting as the match itself. So I think we're in for some interesting twists and turns with NWA over the next couple of months.
And I imagine there's going to be a clash between Strictly Business and Villain Enterprises, and that would build a lot of buzz, not only for NWA but Ring of Honor, and it would lead to what would inevitably be a clash between Nick and Marty. And what are you thinking about this sort of crossover between NWA and Ring of Honor?
I think it's, in an ideal world, the best professional wrestlers on the planet get to face the best professional wrestlers on the planet, regardless of what company they're working for. And I think if we can have a collision course between the best of NWA and the best of Ring of Honor, then the real winners there are the fans. And I'm a fan of Nick Aldis and I'm a fan of Marty Scurll. I've known them both since 2004, so I think I'm the perfect man to sit on the headsets and talk about them and commentate on that match. So I'm looking forward to when that eventually does come to a head, because inevitably it's going to come to a head. I don't know when and I don't know where, but I'm really excited for it, and the real winners there are definitely the fans.
Yeah, and speaking of things coming to a head, there's two other matches that haven't really been announced, but from looking at NWA Power, it looks as if Allysin Kay and Melina are set to go on a collision course at Hard Times. Who do you think's got the advantage there? Because you've got Melina, who's just coming back into mainstream wrestling, and Allysin Kay, who's been on an absolute tear through NWA.
Yeah, Allysin Kay is incredible. I'm a massive fan of her work. She's a powerhouse. She's a great athlete. She's aggressive and she's smart too. And she's achieved a lot in her career already. But Melina is someone who she's very cunning. Maybe there's a layer of ring rust on her because she hasn't been around for a little while. But she's a puppeteer and she gets into the head of the wrestlers she fights. So I would love to see them going at it if that's going to be the case. I don't know if it's been announced yet or not what exactly the women's title match is going to be at Hard Times, but I'm a huge fan of the pair of them. And another one that I think is in the mix or thereabouts is Thunder Rosa, who I think is my favourite professional wrestler on the planet right now. She's incredible and she's just got this great persona. Again, she's someone I wasn't too aware of until about 2 or 3 months ago, but I've become a massive fan of her already. Her athleticism is insane, her aggression levels, her technique, and again, this persona that I love. And one of the things I love most about professional wrestling is seeing that persona and that character come out of people, and she might be the best on the planet in the women's and the men's divisions right now. So very excited to see where those three all end up. Yeah,
and I think that's the great thing with NWA. There's so much potential there to just blow up and make it massive, which is why I'm really, really grateful that you have taken time out of your very busy schedule to podcast with me today. And I'm now going to wrap this up, unfortunately, as much as we could probably sit here and talk for ages about this. But
yeah, we'll have to do it again, whatever the next NWA pay-per-view is. I don't know if they've even planned that yet, but whatever that is, I'd love to come back on again and do another chat about that, if that's okay.
That is, we can just make it a regular thing then, if that's the case. Just make it so that we just
work very well with me. I'm a big fan of the show, by the way, Shirley. I think you've done a great job. I know it's a new kind of adventure for you in the last year or so, but I think you're doing a great job, and I'm a big fan of listening. So
thank you. So
congratulations to that.
Thank you. So now I'm like proper blushing now over that. It's like, oh, that's so sweet over you. So now this is an opportunity for you to plug any social media, anything you want to plug. Oh wait, hold on, I've got one more question. When is Ultimate Beastmaster coming back?
Oh you know what? I love doing Ultimate Beastmaster. For those who aren't aware of it, it's kind of like the Netflix version of American Ninja Warrior.
It's amazing.
So I love doing it. They did 3 seasons. I know my agent got in touch with them and asked them about a new one. I don't think there's anything planned right now, but that could change at any point. So it's out of my hands.
Oh,
doing it, and the feedback on it was all great. So
I loved it.
Hopefully there's another one, but I couldn't guarantee that one way or another.
Oh man, I had to put that question. I love that show. It's just so good. But here, this is an opportunity. Plug your socials. Plug anything you want to now.
You know what? I don't have too much to plug outside of Hard Times. That's the immediate. I've got some stuff coming up later in the year. I've got a film coming out, which is Vengeance 2, that I'm the lead on, and possibly a couple of other things about to come off too. So I'll keep you posted on those ones as and when they do. But you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Stu Bennett, 2 N's, 2 T's on Bennett. I can't even remember what my handle is on Instagram, but I'm on there too, and I got a verified tag. So don't follow any of the fakes. And there's a ton of fakes on there for some obscure reason. I don't know why people are doing that, but I'm the one with the verified tick, or the blue V, or whatever it is these days. So that's about it. Yeah, find me on there, and make sure you check out NWA Power on YouTube. It's free. It's 1 hour a week. It's on every Tuesdays at 6:05 Eastern, which is 11:05 p.m. GMT in the UK. And obviously we have Hard Times pay-per-view on the FITE TV app, which is going to be on January the 24th. So make sure you catch that TV title tournament. Nick Aldis versus Flip Gordon, and a bunch of other matches are going to be on there too. And most importantly of all, it's going to be me talking absolute nonsense on top of it. So how can you possibly miss that?
Well, they've had to listen to me talking nonsense twice this week. So now I'm going to plug my socials, which is at Shirleigh Shells, both on Instagram and on Twitter. Thank you very, very much for listening. And thank you again, Stu, for accommodating an 8-hour time difference to make this all work.
Oh, my pleasure. I'd love to come back on again, like I say. And thank you very much for having me on. Thank you for writing NWA. And everyone enjoy the show. Please check it out. It's a lot of fun, and it's probably something that's very different to what you're used to in the current world of professional wrestling. But in my opinion, it's the best single hour of professional wrestling anywhere on the planet right now today. So check it out and have some fun.
I literally can't end it any better than that. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. And be sure to check out TWN Talks for more podcast exclusive, including probably some more ones with Stu Bennett. Thank you very much for listening.